Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CEO Commitment. Joining us today is somebody who needs no introduction. Join me in welcoming Captain Rajesh Unni, founder and CEO of the Synergy Group. Welcome to Maritime SheEO 2021, sir.
Thank you, Sanjam. So kind of you all to have me on the show. Thank you.
So there are a lot of questions that we've been wanting to ask you, and I'm going to start with the first one. We all know that in the maritime industry, very few walk the talk when it comes to gender diversity. What is it that drives your commitment to this cause?
Yeah, I think thanks, Sanjam, for bringing this up. And I also feel that for every commitment, there must be some personal motive or reason. Some things in your life has influenced. And for me, frankly, I would say 2-3 things. One, if you look back, my grandmom has been my best teacher, and she's come from a time where basically she didn't even have access to good schools, but she had so much to offer to this world. And because my granddad, was a farmer, but also quite strong in his personality traits, that my grandmom really couldn't do things that she otherwise would have loved to do. And she has in confidence told me about this many times. And then if that's not good enough, and then my mom also went through the same thing. She was a great homemaker. I would not exchange that any day for anything else. But I think in a lot of ways, she sacrificed her own aspirations to do this. And then I take complete responsibility that my wife went through the same thing. I was busy running around doing everything, and suddenly somebody puts a hand up and say, listen, I would do that to make sure that our son gets what he needs and somebody at home and he comes back. And everything has a time when somebody has to do this, right? And so the conversations with my wife these days is about, she says, I think I'm enjoying my life now, but there was a time maybe I could have gone out and done something, and especially given an engineering background, and she was working for General Electric at that time when we got married, which is a great company. So I think I'm also a lot guilty about why I also did not set up a good environment and an ecosystem to help these women in my life thrive, right? So obviously there's a lot of guilt, but I also feel that it's a pity that we didn't take advantage of the diversity in terms of thought process. So I think in a nutshell, all these experiences in a way and my understanding has shaped my thinking around diversity and inclusivity. And importantly, I think, like we discussed in the past, diversity is a kind of a business imperative now, and it's not a good or a nice thing to do. And I also feel very strongly that the maritime workforce needs to be unidimensional. To move to the next level, to drive innovation, and we need more attention on alternative ways of thinking. And I think in that aspect, if you want people to think differently, which is what drives innovation, then diversity is one very useful and most crucial tool that we have in our armor. And I think if you don't use it, we lose a lot. So one is about creating the right perspective for everybody and driving gender equality, in my opinion, more than gender diversity. It's about gender equality. But it's also business imperative and business critical these days, because if you don't tap on those diverse ways of thinking, actually you're losing out a lot. So I'm a big fan of this because I think that one, we need different type of people on the room to be able to bring the best ideas on the table. So, and I can promise you that almost every conversation that I walk out, we definitely zoom in on some ideas which is not mine. So which means that a lot of other people have helped me in becoming a better person. And secondly, I think that this is also payback time for me in my own personal life and my own personal journey on some of the things that I think I should have done better at. So for me, definitely diversity is a commitment that I'll stick on for a long, long time.
Thank you for those candid confessions. And it's great to know that how you used your personal experiences and you're actually getting committed to this cause. So can you tell us about the first steps that you took towards gender diversity and equality in your organization? How did you go about that?
So I think the first thing in driving gender diversity is, I think, a change in somebody's mindset, right? We can talk about numbers, and I'll come to numbers, but I think bringing the numbers alone is not enough, my opinion. Organizations a lot of times fail in addressing the mindset changes. And I think our focus has been to build an inclusive environment through this whole thing about changing mindsets. And the biggest change that we need to have is on leadership, if you ask me. How do you train people? How do you train our managers to create an organization which is diverse and inclusive? Fundamental things about, men and women are not the same, right? So understanding that a woman's career, also involves understanding crucial stages in their lives, right? So if that's true, then how do you build a supportive ecosystem around it? So we've had things like, talking about maternity leave, paternity leave, and then ensuring that you have policies and process and workforce that supports even a phased-in approach if somebody, has a maternity, or you'll find that there are different challenges when somebody gets married to, because traditionally, even now, the households think very differently of women. So how can we create a work culture? How can we create a mindset amongst people that accept these changes and then look at the best in those changes, right? And I can tell you that some of these women are so committed in what are they doing in spite of all these challenges. So I think the fundamental thing, even before I touch numbers, is about creating a change in the mindset in each one of us that accept that men and women are not the same. So sometimes in their stages in their lives, their support that they need are very different to what men needs, right? And I also think that we've included diversity in our strategic imperatives, that to say that this has to be part of our induction. Any leadership positions that come in the induction process that we take in, diversity and inclusion is part of the agenda, and we need people to take them seriously. It's not like another tick box that comes in as part of an induction checklist. Because I feel that it is our responsibility to create a culture, a mindset that's accepting of these things. And I can tell you many examples on this. When we took the first master, Capt, and she was a master in SCI in the past, but so there are so many examples, such examples that we can quote when we had these shifts. So now, if you look at it, I think at least about 35 to 36% of our new workforce that are coming in are women, and it's mandated that way. Right, so our existing ratio on the shore is about late 20s, 28, 29%, and we're pushing that bar up. But the more critical part is that how do you create women in senior leadership positions? That's the key. That's when the actual change happens. And fortunately, because we are a growing organization, because in many ways we are trying to transform this industry, it also opens up a lot to different talent, which means we have access to a lot more women who are doing fantastic work outside of shipping. We can bring them into senior leadership positions. So I think this is what we feel, and there will always be challenges, and I wouldn't say that it will vanish, but I would hope that the senior leadership and the senior management has that faith and that trust to follow this through. Because otherwise, sometimes this will just remain a talk in a boardroom, and that will just, kind of dent some of the confidence that a lot of people have struggled hard to get into.
This is great, and you're really actually trying to create more women leaders, and that's something that I really am very committed to, because the change actually happens when you have more role models and senior management roles, and when women can see themselves there. So kudos to you for that. Now I know that you're really committed to the cause, and you really try to change mindsets. But how did you normalize this initiative with the rest of the team in your organization? Was there any resistance?
Of course, like I said, that if I tell you that there has been no resistance, I would be joking. But having said that, I also want to clarify that the resistance is not from a space where they say, I don't want women here. The resistance is more coming from a space, a mind space, where they think that they may not be able to perform. And because of which they may be let down from their own internal benchmarks that they themselves have set upon themselves. So I think I must also give credit to people in that sense that I don't think most members of our team or male feel that I don't want to move into taking more women because they're just women. I think it's more, and they have mothers, they have wives, they have sisters. So I don't think that's the challenge. The challenge is more to say, how can we convince them to say that you will still meet your targets, maybe you'll do better. That's the key. So, and like you rightly said, and the way to achieve that is to celebrate success and celebrate some role models and celebrate stories where people, say, wow, and create more women who are more aspirational now because of those, because of what they hear, for them to set their benchmarks higher and thereby, they kind of do better than what they have. So I think one of the things, again, is that the growth opportunity that we've had, right, in the sense because God has been kind and we've grown, and also because we're trying to transform the business and operating models in our industry, it gives us the flexibility to hire, role models in senior positions, whereby the younger women feel, oh, great. There are cases where, some of our executives, I met them in Hamburg just not 2 weeks ago, and she walks up to me and says, you know what, the best thing that's happened to me is being part of the team at Synergy. And I said, why? She said, there's no way on earth somebody in Chennai with my background could have even aspired to be in Hamburg and do something which is far more meaningful, right? And clearly it is not me, and it's a lot more women who've aspired people like Sonam to go up and do this kind of work. So I think the best way to normalize, if any, is to create role models, celebrate stories of success, and celebrate small little things where people have stepped up and done a lot more than what they can do. And the next thing I think we should also be able to do is to measure these against business impact. Because one thing is to just say, oh, this is the best thing to do. But the more important thing is to measure this against business impact and show to people with data on how this is actually doing better for the business event. So it's not just, because some crazy CEO has got some, past experiences feeling guilty about, like I'm talking, but it's also having a good business impact. So I think once people start to see that, then it's a more positive spiral. People start to believe in this. And I think you can pretty quickly create a momentum within the organization. So very honestly, because of what has happened, a lot of the leaders today, I don't think any one of us have to even say, even Jo as head of an HR, she has to put her foot down and say, listen, we need to have more diverse candidates in the interview. But I think most leaders today are looking to see if there are women candidates out there, or can we get somebody from other industries and do that. So it's become part of the thinking process. And for that to happen, you need to do these few things, which is about celebrating small success, celebrating role models, celebrating stories, and clearly mapping that against business impact, which I think, because most women that I know also feel that I don't want just that to be given on my plate just because I'm a woman. I want to earn that, right? So they feel a sense of pride, sense of belongingness should come into all this. So I think that's one thing that you can help in creating. Because unless people feel self-worth, then it's a difficult place to be in.
Absolutely, and completely agree. And you've spoken about the impact, the positive impact it will have in the organization's bottom line by having more diversity. What is it that what are the changes that you have seen within Synergy, after having a more diverse workforce? Can you highlight one important change that has taken place? Is there better teamwork, greater innovation, higher productivity, maybe on board of the ships or on shore? What is it that you see is now being done differently?
So first thing, at the core of Synergy, and you can ask that to most people in part of the team, whether it's on shore or on board. I think the first thing that people will say in an organization like us is to say that we feel it's all about teamwork. Right? That's been kind of a core of our culture. It's always about the team, and it's never about an individual. But I can tell you, once we've rolled on this diversity, that has even more become much more stronger. People have become more open to being challenged. People have become more open to say, okay, you know what, let's have 10 ideas in the room and then decide which is the best one. So, which also meant that a lot of women felt more comfortable in opening up and saying what they felt, even if it meant that Unni comes in and suggests, okay, why don't we do this? They felt more comfortable to come and say, Unni, listen, you know what, I think that is great, but I don't really agree with you. And I've had so many pushbacks in so many meetings with some amazing people, including women, of course, that I think for us, it has strengthened that core philosophy of saying that it's always about the team. So that is one. The second we touched upon is about being more innovative, because we clearly wired very differently, men and women, and we react differently to different situations, which also means that we also think very differently when these are thrown upon us. So innovation, definitely, we've seen a lot of increase in how people think and how people talk about how do we innovate this and how do we do this better. So I would say teamwork, innovation, acceptance. People have found a lot more acceptance to things around them, whether it's on their personal life or their professional life. I think acceptance is one thing that has come up quite a bit. That means we accept somebody for who they are, rather than setting up our own little framework on who they should be. We've become a lot more acceptance in our life. And whether it's about how you've changed yourself after being married or when you become a parent or whatever. So I think acceptance is the third thing that we've seen significantly change. I'm happy. All this put together, you have a very happy team. And which is what I think, at the end of the day, all that matters is whether you're happy in what you do and you enjoy whatever little small things that you're able to do in life. So I think the happiness quotient and that index also definitely, I feel, has improved quite a bit. These are not intentional, but it just comes because of the other things that create this. So that would be my thinking. These 3-4 things.
And I think that we can see the success that Synergy has been in making inroads in the industry. And I think that is so apparent that the practice that you're putting into place to promote diversity is actually showing and yielding results. So my next question to you is somewhat controversial, because how do you counter those who believe that women should not be working on board ships? I've had some people who say, oh, women aren't strong enough. This is physical work. I've had people who say, women bring, it's not good luck to have women on ships. And I've also had people who've actually said to me that, it's not a safe place to be and we can't control the behavior of men. So what's the easy way out? Let's just not have women on ships altogether. And that's the easy solution. So how do you counter those mindsets? And especially when you're working with different partners, has there been a situation where you really had to go out of your way to convince somebody that, no, we need to have women on board ships? And how has that panned out?
Sure. First of all, on your previous comment on whether it's successful or not, I really don't know. But one thing is that we want to be happy, and we will continue our best to do such that we're all a happy bunch of people. So that's for sure. So I think our measurement and index is about happiness and less so about number of ships or the growth, to be honest with you. I think that's what we are, and that's what should define us going forward too. Now, coming on the challenges, absolutely. And if you talk about the first point you raised was, are we strong enough as women compared to men? And I, for one, don't understand why we have ranks like able-bodied seamen or ordinary seamen. I mean, those are gone, right? In the sense, I think when people were sailing, maybe they wanted people who were able-bodied and could manage their sails. And I think we're still stuck in those ranks. And I think that rank, my recent conversation with IMO, I said the same thing. That I don't know why you guys are still holding on to some of these ranks, because shipping itself and the ships on board have changed significantly. So I think that whole concept about being strong is only men. And I run some marathons from time to time. I also climb mountains, and some of the best people on my team are women. They're super strong, I mean, we just went on the Whitney in August this year. Not a big mountain, 14,000 odd feet, but I had Sonia who went down the mountain, and then she went and did a full marathon right after that. So, what are we talking about strength here a little bit, give me a break. So that's your point on strength. One. Secondly, I don't even believe that you need to be physically strong to be able to, and what is it going to really do on my operating ships to be honest? It's a question that we need to ponder. And then what is the biggest challenge is more about the mindset. And let me draw a correlation here if I can. One is about, I also work a lot on the social spaces, and one of the areas that maybe I'm passionate about is also kids who are differently able. Right? Differently able. And we have inclusion as a big part of the agenda. And it just coincidentally got a mail from a dear friend of mine called Firoz. He's a head of SAP for the training and all that. He's a vice president at SAP, and he runs the India Inclusion Foundation, where also part of it. The biggest challenge in all those is not the children themselves, it's the parents. I think we first need to educate the parents on how do we manage the children. The children themselves are, I think, reasonably okay. So the same, I think, can be applied or maybe correlated for people on board a ship. It's about how do we manage the mindset of men on board to understand these differences, right? And we've had definitely a lot of challenges where, there are times where the women, when they simply say no, men should realize it is no. That's it. And simple things like that, I think, will be a challenge going forward. But it has to do a lot more on educating men than educating women, because women on these ships are new comparatively compared to this, what has happened for many, many years ago. So I think it's about also giving the men a little bit of space to give them to understand that these changes are happening, and these are changes there to stay. So I feel that the mindset again about how we give each other the space, how do we respect each other, when somebody says something, how do we take that meaningfully? I can give you another example where I got an email. We have a system where today, when issues on such, they have access to write directly to even me. And I got an email that says, there's somebody who makes random cabin inspections, and they don't give me enough notice because, there are things that are lying on my cabin which I don't want somebody to see in that same state. So simple things like this, right? And we need to then call up and educate people and say, listen, it's a different workforce right now. So you need to understand. And maybe they have also not done this intentionally, but it's just understanding the subtle differences and then managing them. I think this challenge will be there, but that should not deter us away from making that step, because it's extremely important. Like if you don't have enough women on board the ship, how do you feed the industry ashore? We talk about diversity and all that ashore, but they have to come from somewhere. So if you want, we had Capt. in the office in Pune, and she kind of had to gain that experience of sailing on some ships before she came ashore, right? So unless you have that pipeline and unless you build that bench strength, then as an industry, we may lose out on that opportunity. So, yeah, so to your question, I don't think that we will have an easy access here, but it should not stop us from doing what is right.
What is the one thing that you think that they should be doing that could help, normalize this for the industry?
So I don't want to say that we're doing something wrong, but I would rather say, what can we do more, or what can we do better? I think one of the things is I don't see there are so many role models out there, women in senior roles or even in junior roles, that are coming and sharing their stories openly about what are the benefits, the challenges, or how they overcome this. How can we inspire younger women? So I would request some of the women like yourselves and the others who've done, well, or taken on senior leadership positions to come out and inspire and motivate young women. because one of the things I want to share here is that, there's a huge opportunity in shipping, right? So one of the requests for me is for people like you all to come in. It's one thing for me or somebody else to tell it, but when they hear it from other women, it's far more inspiring and touching. So one of the requests is to do that. We need to maybe focus a little bit more there. The other thing that we could do as an industry, it's not an organization kind of a thing. It's an industry-wide initiative that we must take, which means that how can we share best practices more openly? Like I'm always a big fan of collaboration in especially areas where we don't necessarily need to compete. Whether we talk about safety, environment, it's about collaborative efforts to make the industry better. And diversity is one of those things. So how can we share best practices across the industry so that we all get better? And maybe we can create a common framework across the industry in promoting diversity, right? How do we do that? How do we create that framework to attract better talent? How do we attract and inspire young women to come out of shipping? Can we build a framework and learn from each other? That one thing that I'm disappointed, honestly, is also that some of the other industries, look at what women have done for the other industry. Amazing work they've done. Why is shipping left behind? There's definitely a notion that we are archaic, we're old, we are resistant to change, all that. But are we not losing out by having such an image? So I think we all should come out and do this, not just because it's the right thing to do, but also because it creates good business impact. And if we don't do that, we lose out. We lose out on good talent as an industry. So summing up, yes, one, request more women to come out and share their stories, inspire younger women. Two, maybe we create a platform where we can share best practices across the industry, because these are areas where we can collaborate. Three, maybe create a collaborative framework for us to be able to inspire and excite young talent to come in, because we don't want to lose out on good talent.
Wonderful. And I'm so happy to share that at the conference, we are having points 1 and 2 covered. So we're going to have a lot of female role models. We're also talking about best practices in the industry. So completely with you there. And to end, my last question would be just one suggestion or one piece of advice you would have to the younger generation, especially because we have a huge section of the youth joining us today at the conference. What would be one advice that you would want to give them?
Sanjam, I'm really not sure I'm qualified to give an advice, but what I can do is I can share my feeling or my hope, at least. Because I think I have not seen many industries that are at the cusp of such a large transformational, change that's happening right there, to be honest. So I don't think there are many industries that are, at such a point in their journey where there's going to be huge transformation, whether we like it or not. It's a genie out of the bottle. So there's that opportunity along with such a challenge. So I think that for the young people, look at shipping as a huge opportunity. Look at shipping as an opportunity to transform an industry. Look at shipping as a place that's safe, and also people are warm and nice. It's a relationship-based industry, which also means that you can thrive with good relationships. So please look at shipping as a place to be, and in a way that we can transform supply chain itself. So the opportunity in shipping is huge, is humongous. So I would urge any youngster to give it a shot, because in digital and all, there's a lot of initiatives that have happened, whether it's about media, finance, and all that. There's a lot of innovation that's happened. Shipping is something that we are going through what digital and all went through in the late 90s or early 90s, maybe. So we are in that space, which means there's a lot of opportunity. So I hope that a lot of young people dive into this space, because the opportunity is for us to just choose and explore.
Absolutely. And we do have our career section going on as we speak. We have specifically, we have 8 maritime professionals from different aspects, different verticals, who are going to be talking to the youth about the various career opportunities they can pursue. Thank you, Capt. This has been a wonderful conversation to have with you. Thank you for taking the time. Keep doing what you're doing. We really love the fact that you are supporting the diversity, walking the talk for us. And do keep in touch to guide us as to what you think we should be doing more. And yes, we do feel that we need to have more CEOs to commit. So please feel free to challenge more CEOs to commit to diversity.
Thank you, Sanjam. I personally will do my best, but also I'm sure the industry is thinking similar lines. So we will do our best as an industry. And you all should do what you do. Push us hard, push us even more harder, put us on spot, and don't hesitate to challenge us. And I think we will come back stronger as an industry together. And that's the only way forward. So thank you for having me on the show. And I wish all of you the best in whatever you want to do in life. But the key is have fun, enjoy yourself, and do what is right, because you want to be on the right side of history at the end of the day. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.